Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to the Health Show Hajj Special, live here only on the Islam Channel. Now this afternoon we bring you a special Hajj programme where you can call in and put your questions forward to our experts, doctors and sheikhs about any health concerns you may have before you begin your journey. Now, as we all know, Hajj is an annual Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca, the holiest city. And Muslims have a mandatory religious duty that they must carry out at least once in their lifetime by all adult Muslims who are physically and financially capable of undertaking the journey and can support their family during their absence. With great numbers come great risks, Hajj being the largest mass migration in the world. Good medical preparation is vital, and today we'll be discussing all matters concerning one's health in relation to performing one's pilgrimage. The number to call will be 020 8554 2514, and you can also email us at healthshow@islamchannel.tv. Now the details will appear on the screen later on in the show, and lines will be open later in the show as well, so don't call just yet. Now, to discuss today's topics, we are going to be joined by renowned and well-respected sheikhs within their communities, Sheikh Suleiman Ghani and Sheikh Abu Hanifa, as well as a general practitioner, Dr. Imran Gohar. Welcome to all of you. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
It's an amazing topic that we're going to be discussing, so we really appreciate all of your knowledge and your experience. But before we go any further and we talk more to our guests and open the phone lines, we're going to watch a short clip to familiarise ourselves with what we're in for.
Hajj, the annual pilgrimage to Mecca in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is one of the largest gatherings of its kind in the world, where each year 2.5 million Muslims from over 160 countries travel to the same place. The event occurs between the 8th and the 12th day of the 12th month of the Islamic calendar every year. This year, it is predicted that Hajj 1439 will take place between the 19th and 24th of August 2018. The Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, is the largest mass migration in the world. During the Hajj, the pilgrims undergo great physical and emotional strain. Good medical preparation, including vaccinations, is very important for pilgrims who undertake the Hajj, in particular for those who are older and have chronic disease. The chance of transmission of infective disease is also high, and rapid contagion of Hajj pilgrims could cause a pandemic. It is therefore important that the responsible doctor is aware of the health risks to the Hajj pilgrim and his environment.
It's going to be an amazing experience for any of you who are undertaking that on the 19th. And to talk more about the experience and particularly the health issues, again, our guests, and what I'd like to do is talk to each of you individually, first of all, to find out a little bit more about your experience and your experience of Hajj. So, first of all, Sheikh Suleiman Ghani, you've been quite a few times, haven't you?
Yes, alhamdulillah, it has been a great, unique opportunity that when we respond to the many, every year, I think probably now 2 decades has gone by and we were able to do Hajj consecutively for so many years. Also many times, about 5 times alone with the Islam channel. And this year, we'll, inshallah, will be setting out on Wednesday, the 15th of August, to be amongst this large number of pilgrims, well over 3 million. And every year it is a unique experience. Even though we have set out on Hajj the previous years, every year, still when we go this year, we face the very same challenges. It is this, but because we already know exactly what to expect during the coming days of Hajj, we are more relaxed, and it is more about understanding, given that we will be with many of the pilgrims in the group. This year, the record number in the group that I will be with, over about 500. And to see the anxiety and the stress and how they are trying to cope, every matter they are concerned with.
Well, that amount of experience that you have is going to be hugely valuable for all of us learning today, and especially for viewers at home who are about to undertake this incredible journey. So, Dr. Gohar, tell us a little bit more about your experience. Obviously, you're a GP, and again, a guest who we've welcomed on the Health Show before, and it's great to see you back again.
Thank you.
First of all, tell us about your experience, because you have undertaken the Hajj yourself.
Well, I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime journey, physically and emotionally, both. I've just done Hajj once, actually, and I think it was amazing. Of course, it's a religious obligation, but the experience is amazing. I think from the health point of view, my advice is the key is in preparation. Obviously, you prepare yourself for the religious side of things as well, but because it's also a physically demanding journey, so one should prepare themselves mentally and physically before they start the journey as well, to take the full advantage of this whole event.
And that's the real key to this programme, isn't it? A lot of people are so involved with preparing themselves with their faith and their duty of going to Hajj and the emotional experience that they're going to have, that sometimes actually their health is something that's put on the back burner a little bit. It's not given the time that it should do. So your experience as a GP is going to be massively helpful in giving people advice. And certainly I know when people phone in, they're going to be asking you lots and lots of questions about their health as well. And then Sheikh Hanifa, again, thank you so much indeed for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit more about your experience of Hajj.
The first time I've been to Hajj was 1979.
Wow.
I was about maybe 10 years old, and I've seen a huge difference between how it was in the 70s until now. I lived in Saudi for 14 years, and I'm familiar with with the land and familiar with the custom, with the culture. So I've seen, I would say, a huge difference between how it was with my first experience until recent Hajj.
And it's interesting, isn't it, from the pictures and the reports I've seen, the amount of work that the authorities have undertaken in Saudi Arabia to make it as safe as possible, as healthy as possible, and incredibly moving for people who are part of it, that they have done a huge amount to help the experience.
Yeah, so I think again there are lots of options nowadays, actually, if you look, and you can find different Hajj permissible shoe wear, actually, which you can use during the Hajj. And I always advise to make sure you wear it beforehand as well, not just go and open it, right at the Hajj. So you just make yourself, familiarize yourself with everything. The other very important thing is the emotional side of thing as well. Sometimes people sleep deprivation, lack of fluids, things like that, they can create a big problem during the Hajj, and I've seen a lot of people actually getting dehydration, especially this time. It will be more, actually, because I'm sure it's quite hot over
because
there.
It's so hot.
Yeah.
And actually that's an interesting concept, because I know, again, we talked about the authorities having changed a lot since you were there in 1979, and I know things like water is far more readily available, it's easier to get to, and so on. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen that have maybe, again, that people still don't fully appreciate despite all the efforts from the local authorities?
I mean, one of the greatest challenges, especially during the days of Hajj, is the walk from Mina to the Jamarat complex, that is the pelting of the symbols of the shaitan, over 2.4 kilometers of walk. Now there has been great improvement even in the walk through the tunnels. There's air conditioning, also there is this floor escalators. But after you have pelted the Jamarat, then the Hujjaj, the pilgrims, have to make their way to Mecca to complete another important rite of Hajj, which is called Tawaf al-Ziyarah or Tawaf al-Ifad, which is a fundamental of Hajj. So the journey, and many of the Hujjaj are unaware of how tiresome and how physically demanding it is
and
to walk.
especially in the heat.
In the heat from the Jamarat complex bridge right up until Mecca, because that is where the challenge is. And you're not going to get transport easily available, and most of the pilgrims have to walk. Sweltering heat, we enjoyed the heat wave here in the UK, and the heat wave, believe me, in Mecca...
It's nothing compared with what they're going to experience. Just before we go to our first caller, which we'll take in just 1 second, I just want to talk a little bit about what is permissible to help you stay cool while you're undertaking that long walk. So, for example, can you take a sunshade like an umbrella or something?
Yes, I mean, I always have my beautiful sunshades, dark glasses and my umbrella. It's very, very crucial. It's so important. And there are different ways how people keep them. You have now this spray fans. It is really essential, highly essential to have all of this. People use a wet cloth when they are out of the haram. But many different ways. But most importantly is to have and drink sufficient water throughout that journey or any walk.
And we'll talk a little bit more about hydration as well. But first of all, I'd like to take our first call. So a very good afternoon. Perhaps if you'd like to tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and what your question is.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name's Sadia. I'm calling from London. I have a question for the doctor, Dr. Ghani. I've suffered from chronic asthma for most of my lifetime. So usually, great crowds, it kind of comes with issues because I'm more susceptible to picking up diseases, so illnesses, things like that. So that's why it's one of the things that have put me off, doing Hajj or Umrah. So I was just wondering if the doctor had any recommendations before going, just in dealing with my asthma, like preparations or,
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And I'm sure there are going to be many other viewers who have a similar condition, who have similar concerns. So first of all, Doctor, there's two aspects in terms of preparation and then in terms of medication, because there's quite a lot of information about taking medications to Mecca and what you can, what you can't do and how you should do that. So what would you say?
So specifically about asthma, I think I would advise if somebody suffers from chronic asthma to visit their GP or practice nurse to get their asthma checked beforehand if they suffer from a bad asthma. Make sure their asthma is under control and if there is any medication needed, etc. Also, if somebody, again, specifically for chronic asthmatics, they can ask their GP for extra steroids, rescue packs or antibiotics rescue pack as well, just in case if they have a history of chronic flare-up of asthma as well as chest infections. Also, during the Hajj, there are different type of masks nowadays available as well, which they can use to prevent from getting airborne bugs and stuff, which can trigger asthma and cause chest infection, etc.
The other thing, very, very quickly, we've got quite a few callers, so we want to get through as many as possible. For people who are on any form of medication, I know there are strict rules about how you can take that medication with you when you travel. What's your advice on that?
I think with Hajj, I think you can take medication as you normally do. So I don't think there's any restriction religiously of taking medication. I think the main key issue is make sure you take all your medication or maybe extra if possible, so that you don't, if there is any, you lose it or something, then at least you have some spare
But going through
ones.
airport security and things like that, I mean, some of the things I was reading, making sure it's in the original packaging, make sure that you've got full details of it so that you can show immigration officials and things like that.
So there are two ways of it. I mean, any medication we prescribe nowadays, your name, your GP surgery, your date of birth, everything is written on that anyway. So it's pretty self-explanatory that you can show that. On top of that, you can also take your repeat prescription as well, which can be an evidence to show that it is your medication and it is something which your GP has prescribed.
And hopefully most people will have had that advice from their GPs. Sure. Excellent, thank you very much. We've got our next caller. A very good afternoon. What would you like to ask?
Yes, my name is Anissa. I'm from Birmingham. I just want to ask the doctor that my heartbeat is very fast. No blood pressure, but the heartbeat is not going down. It is 112, 120. Sometimes is 115. So it is dangerous, or it is what is the sign of this? So could you please advise me? I'm a bit worried about it. The heartbeat is not going down.
If your heartbeat is so high, my first advice would be to see your doctor to make sure what is the cause of it. And there are several causes of it actually, and I mean it's very difficult for me to tell you exactly in her case, but I think she needs to see a doctor, make sure what the causes are, investigation if needed be, and there are some medication which are given if you suffer from permanent high heart rates, etc. So my advice would be to definitely see the doctor before you go on Hajj if you suffer from high heart rate.
And Sheikh Hanifa, you will have, when you've undertaken the Hajj yourself, you'll be aware of how physical this is. It's not just the physical walking, obviously your heart rate and things, it's putting the body under a little bit more pressure than it would normally be under, doesn't it?
And that's why it's a condition. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not obligate every Muslim. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, for those who can afford. So the affordability is a physical ability. So someone can be, excused, can be exempted if they are unable, if they are not fit. And that can be, determined, and that can be established by the doctor.
Again, exactly, that's great advice, isn't it? See your doctor and ask them their advice on, whether you are fit enough to travel, and not to be too stressed if you can't travel because, as you quite rightly say, you are excused. And we have another call, so thank you so much indeed for all these calls coming, and we really appreciate it. So a very good afternoon.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hello, yes, what would you like to ask?
I have a question for the Sheikh.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I want to ask the Sheikh, is it permissible to wear socks while doing Safa and Marwa? And also, how do we count the Safa and Marwa? Is it Safa to Marwa, or is it from Safa to Safa? I just want to get clear clarification on the counting of the 7 rounds, please.
Okay, very good question. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Yeah, for the female, they are allowed to wear the socks unless there is difference of opinion. But my understanding that it's permissible for females also, the footwear, there's no restrictions. With regards to the Safa and Marwa, these are the 2 hills where Hajar, when she was walking in search of the water, she walked, as the Quran explains, Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'airillah. So we commence with the hill of Safa and we end at Marwa. So that is one round, they call it the sa'i, one circuit or what round, and the return from Marwa to Safa is the second. So we start at Safa, end at Marwa, completing 7. It is not that you go to Marwa and you return to Safa and that's counted as 1. No, you're walking, and if it means you're walking 450 meters to Marwa, you have completed 1 sa'i. Most importantly is the 7 is counted not at the return, it's only one way.
I'm sure that will be a little bit of relief for those people who are concerned about the distance that they might have to travel. But even so, over the course of the whole Hajj, there is a lot of walking, isn't there?
Yes, definitely. This is after having circumambulated the Kaaba, the 7 rounds, and thereafter to having complete the sa'i. It's called sa'i between Safa and Marwa. Every pilgrim, every Hajj, has to do this action. It is like wajib, compulsory. It cannot be left out. So therefore, this is the importance of reflecting on this journey. It is not an ordinary journey. It is physically greatly demanding, and hence one has to take extra caution on the preparation with regards to his health.
Now, that's a really good question because, you're going out a few days before the actual Hajj, so there's an opportunity to prepare yourself. What do you suggest people do when they get there, before they actually begin their Hajj? What sort of preparations can they do? Obviously, there'll be a lot of aspects connected with their faith, but what about the physical side to make sure that they're as physically prepared for this?
Really, this is, even if one has been many times, the experience is quite challenging because firstly, when you're at the Jeddah terminal, it's going to probably take many hours. You are really going to be processed like a proper immigration check. But it takes a lot of time. And after you have passed the immigration, then for your journey from Jeddah to Mecca, that also may last many hours because they have a system in place where you can only take a certain coach when that quota has been filled. And by the time you reach Mecca, probably you have already spent almost a day reaching your accommodation. So now your journey already begins. They say, the journey is not only when you reach Mecca and fulfilling the circumambulation of the Kaaba, it is the moment you leave your home. Now imagine the pilgrim, he wants to get to the airport the night before, he didn't have good sleep, and now he has the Heathrow terminal and all the the process. By the time he reaches Mecca, he is physically probably not in a position to complete the first act of the pilgrim. it is advisable that he has good rest because he has to now deal with his accommodation. And Makkah at this moment in time, it is full, overcrowded. And in fact, I am going at a time where the number of the Hujjat is ever on the increase every single day because it is more closer to the days of Hajj. So what we would really highly recommend is don't rush to do the Umrah, the Tawaf, entering the masjid and doing the circumambulation of the Kaaba and the Sa'i of Safa and Marwa. Also, do not do it at a time where it's going to be really extremely
and
hot.
there is that level of flexibility, and we've got a lot more that we can talk about. My goodness me, so much more when it comes to your health and how to prepare and to make the most of this incredible experience, which for most people will be an experience of a lifetime. So thank you very much indeed for the moment. We've got lots more to talk about and lots more calls, but we should stress, by the way, at this time that should you have any medical problems whatsoever, it's always highly recommended that you contact your doctor or medical expert, because of course they will be the people who will give you that real strong expertise on how to make the most of your journey. I mean, in fact, we've just got time just before we go to break. Just maybe if I can ask you, Sheikh, about your experience and what you did to prepare for your last Hajj.
Even me, as someone who have been to Hajj many times, I wouldn't ignore the fact that I need a medical check. My vaccines are updated, and I have taken all the necessary things that I need, for that journey. The umbrellas and those kind of things which are very important for every journey.
So it's making sure that everything's in place and ready. And what do you do with exercise and things like that beforehand? Do you take a little more exercise just beforehand to make sure that you're as physically fit as you can be?
Unfortunately, with me, the type of my, the nature of my, work doesn't allow me to exercise a lot. But because I take the journey of Hajj every year, maybe I have more experience in dealing with the heat, when to walk, like when we are talking about the Jamarat.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Yeah. We're going to go to a break, but we will be right back where we're going to answer more of your calls. So please make sure that you stay with us, and we'll be back in just a few moments. Welcome back to the Health Show Hajj Special, where we're discussing all matters of health for those travelling to perform the Hajj. The lines are now open, so if you would like our sheikhs, doctors or experts to answer any of your questions, then please do give us a call. The number again is 020 8554 2514. You can also email us your questions at healthshow@islamchannel.tv. Now, please do bear in mind that we're only going to be discussing any questions you have regarding to your health concerns while you're undertaking the Hajj. So it's specifically about health with the Hajj rather than the Hajj itself. And again, we must stress that should you suffer from any medical problems, it's always highly recommended that you contact your doctor or GP or a medical expert. So just before we take our first call after the break, we were discussing a little bit there about stress, because people put a lot of emotional strain on themselves. This is incredibly important, and sometimes that can almost create a certain amount of stress. And whilst you're there, the fact that you are not always free to take things at your leisure, you have to go at the same pace as everybody else. You talked about the queues at the airport and the transfers and so on. How do you recommend that people deal with stress?
I think, first of all, again, preparation. Talk to people who's been on Hajj. Also, go to the courses and things which the different organizations arrange for Hajj as well. And because it's a very emotional journey, it's a once in a lifetime journey. So there is a religious aspect of emotions as well, which are high. And also, they don't realize the first time, especially when they go on Hajj, that there are a lot of things don't go as we normally do, for example, at the airport, etc. So patience is very, very important. So mentally prepare that they have to deal with all those things during this journey, and so that they don't get stressed up because of that. Because sometimes if somebody suffers from some chronic illnesses and stuff, and they're getting so stressed, and so it can cause a lot of harm to their physical health.
So it's really
as well.
good to prepare oneself from a stress perspective as well. Well, we've got our first caller in the second half of the show coming up. We're going to take as many of your calls as we can, so please do keep calling in. So a very good afternoon. What would you like to ask our experts this afternoon?
Hello?
Hello there, yes, you're through to us.
Okay.
What would you like to ask?
I'll tell you what, we went into this blessed Hajj pilgrimage last year, yeah? And I'll tell you what, we took sort of advice for antibiotics, because a lot of people come back with a lot of coughs and colds, and we were advised to recommended that take a, antibiotic from Saudi Arabia itself. And fortunately, it really, really helped us, because when we were coming back on the plane, there was loads of us coughing away and sneezing, etc. But the antibiotic we took from the Saudi pharmacy, it was absolutely wonderful, and it really, really, really helped us a lot. And I just wanted to pass this advice and everything to other people who will be going on the blessed journey this year.
That's some really interesting advice and help. Is that something you've experienced, Sheikh, with
Yes.
people,
Yes.
getting antibiotics, because there are a lot of bugs, a lot of things going around?
Absolutely. Rarely that a person will come out of, the camp where there is about 3 million people in a small space without being experiencing this, flus and so on and so forth. So I believe, yes, now it is very important for a person actually to take the right,
And often, actually, the advice is to take a small medical first aid kit with you on the journey, so that you actually can deal with anything that you encounter, whether it be scratches, falls, bruises, or for that matter, picking up bugs and things. Yeah. Really good. OK, we have another caller. Very good afternoon. Perhaps you could tell us who you are and where you're calling from this afternoon.
Yes, my name is Bushra. I'm calling from Swansea.
OK, good afternoon. What would you like to ask, Bushra?
Yeah, I just want to have a quick question with the doctor, please. We are going for Hajj after 3 days' time, and my daughter is on fluoxetine. It's an antidepressant. And I wanted to know whether we can carry that. I have all the prescription from her private GP, but can we carry the medication with us? I hope this is not banned over there in Saudi Arabia. I'm really worried.
It's a very good question, because there are certain medications which in certain countries you can't take them in. So that particular medication, are you aware of whether she would be able to take that into Jeddah Airport?
I can't see why she can't take that, actually. And I'm not aware that there is any restriction on any antidepressants actually to be taken to Saudi Arabia. I must say that she should take either a repeat prescription from her doctor or a letter saying that she is on these medication and the reason for that as well. So I'm sure that should be a problem.
And actually, I think there's always some good advice which I saw online, which was to make sure that you have your medication in your hand baggage with all the documentation in the original packaging, so that it's there available when you get to immigration.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. The other question that we talked about a bit in the break there as well, which might come up from some of our callers while we wait for another call to come through, is the subject of smoking. We all know that smoking is not allowed on the Hajj. But some people, of course, who are smokers might find that really, really challenging and might be looking for alternatives. What would be your advice from a religious perspective on how to deal with this?
Yes, what you say is in the state of ihram, once you have consecrated, once you are in that condition, the prohibition is even more severe. Smoking is haram. The Quran makes it very clear that one should not وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ لَتَهْلُكَ. Do not throw yourself into destruction. Now, when you are smoking in the state of ihram, knowing that it is totally forbidden and prohibited, then really it can have an impact even on the real achievements and value of the reward of this Hajj itself. Because the reward of an accepted Hajj pilgrimage is nothing but Jannah. It seems as if though the person has spent so much of money to fulfill this important act of worship, but then he could not give up this evil habit of smoking. So what is more important, the reward of the Hajj or just following that evil, monstrous habit?
And what about alternatives, things like nicotine patches, gums, e-cigarettes, things like that? What's permissible and what's not?
given that in the state of ihram you are allowed to eat, I mean, so, or any other alternatives, medication, given that this is so more important to try and give up this evil habit of smoking, all that will be permissible to use.
Okay. Now, Doctor, obviously, being a GP, you're very familiar with the stop smoking campaigns and so on. And in fact, this is a great opportunity, as the Sheikh was saying, to use this as a reason to give up smoking. So obviously a little bit late for this year for people to go, but maybe people considering Hajj in the future, could you give us a bit of a step plan that they could work towards, that maybe this could be the moment they've given up?
I think if somebody is planning to do Hajj next year, I would say they should, and they smoke, they should plan now. And the best way is to start reducing the amount they smoke to begin with, and also seek a medical advice as well. There are a lot of options nowadays available. One option Sheikh mentioned is e-cigarette. There are a lot of gums, patches. There are course of medications as well given by the GP. There's a specialist stop smoking campaign which is run through the NHS as well nowadays, which is very useful actually. And I must say it's probably underused by our population as well. So I think they should speak to the doctor or the nurses. Even actually, if they don't want to go to their own doctor, there are campaigns outside their own GP services as well. So there are a lot of options nowadays, and a lot of work being done through NHS for stop smoking. So they should prepare now, and it's doable.
The big issue when people go on Hajj is hydration. We know it's incredibly hot at this time of year in Mecca, and drinking sufficient water is incredibly important. How do you cope with the amount of water that you have to drink? What's the kind of experiences that you have that might help other people?
I would advise, to carry with you water, and water is available, because of the, experience of people having problems with this. So water is available, even to the extent that sometimes it is distributed, freely. So do not ignore, the importance of that.
And actually, there's a really interesting test, isn't there, Doctor, to be able to see if you're hydrated enough or not. And that's by checking the colour of your urine. You can actually see whether you are hydrated or not. What is that? What are the different levels?
Well, I think adding to what Sheikh said, I think obviously water is readily available when you go on Hajj, and you should keep topping up as you can. One of the obviously signs of dehydrations are headaches. I'm talking about severe dehydration, headaches, visual issues. Of course, the urinary output reduces as well, and the color of urine as well, and it becomes more concentrated as well. One more thing which I can add to this is, because of the intensity of heat at this time of the year in Saudi Arabia, people can also take some oral rehydration supplements like ORS and stuff like that. In UK it's called Diarylite, which we use for kids and stuff. So I think if they can take sachets of that as well, that will give you additional actually minerals and stuff to cope with the heat and dehydration.
Really good advice. Thank you very much. We have another caller. Very good afternoon to you. Perhaps you could tell us who you are and where you're calling from today.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum as well. My name's Salim from Kent, and just have you've just asked the topic on smoking. I'm an ex-smoker. I've given up a long time ago, and basically I found it very hard to give up itself, but I managed it at the end. And I think for people going Hajj maybe next year as opposed to this year, the month of Ramadan is probably one of the best opportunities to give up, because they're going to go without smoking during the day. And so that's one thing I just wanted to add to that, as well as getting some exercise in. And that was really it. So in preparation for the Hajj, intended Hajj that everyone's going, may Allah accept their Hajj and keep me in your du'as, and that's all it was. It was just...
well, no, thank you very much, and congratulations for giving up smoking. And yeah, that's a good idea, actually, to use another focal point of the year, to use Ramadan as an opportunity to fully give up.
I think it's such a good advice, actually, because in Ramadan, the whole thing is about self-control. And it's one of the best times to actually quit smoking. So I agree with the caller.
The next thing to talk really about is you looking after your skin, because it's very hot. Not all areas are covered. It's very easy to get sunburn. Even if you are coming from somewhere where you are used to a lot of sun, you're going to be outdoors for a huge amount of time and you can get burned. So again, I'm sure you all had advice on that, because I like to actually show you were talking earlier on about you can actually perform some of the acts actually at not peak times in the middle of the sunshine. You know, there are things you can do.
Yes, I mean, what really with skin develops also, I experience it happens quite a lot, almost every year, that you have a rash, and that's very close to obviously your private parts. I mean, you are especially walking and the skin is touching, you do develop a rash, and it's very, very painful if you don't address and use the Vaseline. So therefore, it's important also that pilgrims need to take Vaseline, which can at least protect and prevent. I would say prevention is better also than the cure, because once that rash you have, it is quite difficult and very challenging. Is that correct?
In addition, what you said, I think it causes a friction, and then the friction and Vaseline and similar sort of things can reduce the friction actually, and that can prevent. And I agree with you that it's a good, useful.
Great tips for all these things that people should be taking on their Hajj. Really, really good advice. And just to remind you, if you do have any more questions or comments, please do let us know. We only have about 20 more minutes of calls that we'll be taking. Then we'll be going for a prayer break, and then in our last section, it'll be a very small section where we're just going to really sum up some of the various tips and pieces of advice that we've heard. So if you would like to make a call, please do so now in the next 20 minutes, and therefore you can make the most of the amazing advice and expertise that we actually have here. And the next thing I really want to talk about is, you know, for men who maybe shave their head, there's a lot of advice again about where to have this done and to make sure that it's done safely, that you're not going to pick up any form of infections and things. You know, do you have any advice on that?
Of course, it is a season. And unfortunately, those who carry this kind of profession, they care about their gain more than the health of the pilgrimage. So I would advise always have your own, carry with you, take it from from home, and it's not a difficult actually. It's not a difficult task. For someone within the group actually to do that for the, voluntarily for the. That's
and then you can be absolutely assured that you're okay.
Of course.
We talked a little bit earlier on, Doctor, about things that you should be having in your medical kit, your first aid kit. We talked about suntan lotion, just heard about Vaseline, which is a great tip. What other things would you recommend, apart from, of course, your own medication?
I think generally pain relief could be a good idea. Simple, bandages and stuff, if you can get some, basic ones for wound care as well, simple cuts and bruises and stuff. And also, depending on your health as well. So, for example, Vaseline is a good idea to prevent any kind of friction and triggering factors for infection and stuff. Then again, I think the most important thing is people who suffer from some serious illnesses. They should be even more prepared, actually, for these things. So I always advise to have 2 packs of medications of their own, just in case. For example, like asthma or other chronic lung disease, maybe a rescue pack for their medications, like antibiotics.
I think that idea of rescue packs is a very good idea, and having them in 2 places, that's brilliant. We actually have another caller on the line who I believe is a doctor, so a very good afternoon. Can you tell us who you are and where you're calling from today, please?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Majid Katmi. Very interesting program, well timed now before Hajj. I thought as a medical doctor to say quickly very few health benefits resulting from Hajj. If anybody look to Hajj and Tawaf and Sa'i, a lot of walking and running. This is the prescription by all doctors in the world today for overweight, for obesity, for high blood pressure, for heart disease, for diabetes. Also, in the sun, especially men, a lot of vitamin D from the sun for your bone and your health. You drink Zamzam water. You do dua for cure and healing. And you shave your hair, especially men. You got a new, healthy hair. But most important, high spirituality. This is, as a man of psychology, the best psychological health. You will get it when you go to Hajj. So I hope Allah accept our Hajj, inshallah.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Maybe we should have you on our expert panel next time. We really appreciate your advice. Thank you very, very much. And it's that experience when people have been, because it's quite daunting for people who haven't been before. They hear lots of advice and lots of different things. They know that spiritually it's going to be an incredible experience. But likewise, you know, you were talking about that anticipation and the emotional excitement that can cause a lack of sleep and so on. How do you suggest that people just relax and just make the most of the event and soak it all up?
I think, in my opinion, talking to others who have already done Hajj helps a lot. Reading about the whole event of Hajj, if you're going first time, helps a lot. Going to these courses where they prepare you for the rites and how you. So I think talking to a lot of people who've already done it helps a lot actually, and mentally prepare you for that.
And you know what, the information we're getting, not just from our callers, but also from you, I mean, this is really, really valuable advice for people undertaking the Hajj. And just to remind you at home that there is just 15 minutes to call in. If you would like to call in, please do. The number again, you've seen is 020-8554-2514. Please feel free to give us a call. You've got 15 more minutes to do so, and you've got two well-respected, renowned sheikhs and a doctor. You know, you've got some incredible expertise here. So please do give us a call, because the chances are the call that you make and the question you have will be something else that other people want to know as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because when Dr. Majid was mentioning that you're going to have new fresh hair, I found it interesting, and I thought about the hadith saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that he made dua, prayer 3 times for those who shave their head completely. Irham ala al-muhalliqeen. Show mercy on those who shave off their head completely. So from a medical point of view, it seems that this is quite a good thing to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 3 things. Prior to Hajj, I would say make a list of your apprehensions actually, what you worried about, and make a list when long before the Hajj, and then try and answer all those questions. So it makes your life much easier at the time of Hajj, and you're much calmer as well actually. So prior to Hajj, because everybody got loads of questions, I mean religious questions, health questions, make a list of them and try and get the answers prior to Hajj.
And then tick them off one by one, yeah. We actually have another call, I believe from Nigeria. Ibrahim, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, how are you?
We're very well, and we're delighted to take your call. What would you like to ask?
MashaAllah, I want to give an advice. You see, the medical mission in Saudi Arabia are doing extremely well. And I think Hajj should try to make very good use of Saudi medical missions, every corner, everywhere you see them for advice and also for emergencies. I think you should also advise them to take care of those locations so that they get immediate health advice. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much indeed for calling in. And again, it's great to have such good advice from our callers as well as our experts here in the studio. And actually, this is one of the things which is really impressive when you see the arrangements and you see the way things have really improved and developed at Mecca with the Saudi authorities having worked incredibly hard. You know, you've been many times and you've seen these changes. How do you feel the changes are improving people's well-being while they actually are on their Hajj?
You know, the experience, it's not only for the Hujjaj, the experience is even for those who are hosting the Hujjaj. They, year by year, they learn new things. What is that, we can provide for, for the Hujjaj? For that, with all these years, the Saudi authority actually gain a lot of experience in dealing with this. So that's why they have units, moving units, mobile, let's say, units, where they could be in those areas where there is no establishment. And they have a huge hospital in Mina, which is, functioning 24 hours. So the Saudi authority, they are doing a great job there for the Hajjaj.
And it's actually really interesting when you talk about those kind of preparations and what's been done. And, you know, each year they're improving more and more and more. Yes. One of the things that people often ask, in fact, we've just had an email question come in about the injections and inoculations you should maybe have before you go. And I know there are recommendations by the Saudi health authorities as well as the UK health authorities. So what sort of, especially maybe somebody who hasn't travelled extensively before, what kind of inoculations, what kind of things should they have before they go?
So meningococcal, meningitis one is essential. You have to have that one done 10 days prior to go to Saudi Arabia, not less than 3 years otherwise. So this is the essential one, and you have to have a certification for that. Otherwise, general advice for Saudi Arabia travel, the vaccination could be for hepatitis A, B, diphtheria, typhoid as well. But for Hajj, I think the most essential one is the meningitis one, and you need to have it done 10 days, at least 10 days prior to you arrive in Saudi Arabia and get a certification from the doctor as well.
Brilliant. Great advice, and I know there's lots more to come. In the meantime, we've got Fatima from London. A very good afternoon, Fatima. What would you like to ask our experts today?
Assalamu alaikum. I suffer from incontinence and I really want to go to Hajj. I can't stay without going to know where the toilets are if I need to go out. So is it possible to send somebody to do my Hajj for me on my behalf, please?
Again, a very, very good question, Fatima. Thank you so much indeed for asking that, because actually that can be a very stressful scenario for people when they're not too sure, they're in the middle of their Hajj and they're not too sure. From your experience having been there, how readily available are toilets and things?
I mean, with the provisions and the toilet facilities, they have increased it outside the masjid, outside the mosque area. So it is in the basement. They have for the ladies, they have for the men. So they have increased the toilet facilities. And also, I think the challenge is because of the crowd. It may take a little long while for one to exit from the mosque and the masjid and to enter into the toilet. And there are a lot of queues, especially during the 5 days. When you go to Mina, you're going to have to be standing in the queue probably an hour before even the prayer. So that is really expected. It's something is beyond control. There's only so much one can do. Do you do the provisions to accommodate the ever-increasing number of pilgrims? And if every pilgrim, yes, indeed, how many toilets do you allocate? Because you have about 5,000-6,000 people in one compound, in the entire Mina city. And in each compound, you have toilet for probably different groups will be sharing the very same facility. So it's really something that also one has to be mentally prepared. How does one control oneself? And it is a challenge, yes.
So what would you recommend, Doctor?
For this caller, I think the question probably she's trying to ask is if she's already suffered from incontinence, actually. So I don't know what the Islamic ruling is if somebody who's already suffered from incontinence wear a pads. Whether they can do Hajj or not, I think that's probably what.
I mean, at the end of it is, the Hajj is farad upon that person who is also physically able to. When you say man istata'a ilayhi sabila, it means you also physically as well as you can afford to undertake that journey. If one's condition is such, and if it is life-threatening, I mean, the end of it there is flexibility to when to carry out certain acts. But this is something that the condition of the person will all depend.
And I suppose a lot of it is the degree of incontinence that this lady is suffering from, because obviously there's a big spectrum of that. And I suppose at the end of the day, maybe her doctor might be able to advise her in terms of, how long in between.
Is it life-threatening?
No, it's not life-threatening, but I think incontinence is very embarrassing for some patients, actually, and I can understand that. And it's not under your control. So I think what the issue is, when you can have incontinence, is very difficult to predict. So patients normally wear pads all the time, basically. So what I think the caller is trying to ask probably is that she wears a pad and whether she can do Hajj or not. Is there any kind of provision for that? I'm not sure.
I mean, if somebody has a genuine reason and they say it's ma'zur, it is permissible, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, that you do whatever you can, whatever is in your capability, but that does not stop you from undertaking this journey of Hajj.
I think, yeah, and again, it's a case of how debilitating this particular condition is.
It's a permanent illness.
Yeah. Okay, we have another caller. A very good afternoon, and I believe you're calling from Milton Keynes. Who are we talking to this afternoon?
My name is Mr. Abdul Nasser Maraduddin, and I'm just calling just to find out regarding Hajj, if I can do that if I have blood pressure issues. First of all, I'd like to say hi to the host and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to the sheikh.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for your call. It's a good question. We've talked a little bit about this in terms of, how debilitating a condition is and so on. So, he was talking there about his condition. What would you say?
I think high blood pressure is a very common problem, and it's very easily manageable if you go and see your doctor. There's a clear protocol for it, and we can start you on medication and bring your blood pressure under control. So I can't see any reason why you can't perform Hajj if you suffer from high blood pressure and taking tablets.
And again, just to repeat what you said earlier on, is to make sure that any medication you need, you take it. And I'm guessing as well, you need to take medication in anticipation of a potential worsening condition or something like that to be fully prepared, for that. Yes. Really, really good advice, gentlemen. Thank you so much indeed. And just to really cover some of the other aspects of Hajj that many people ask about, one of the ones is about air conditioning. Obviously, for people staying at hotels at different parts of their journey, sometimes air conditioning, people feel it can almost bring on a cold, or there's sometimes sort of bugs and things that go around with that. What's your view on that?
I mean, from my experience, I found this one of the great challenges, especially when you are sharing accommodation. You may have a 5-star hotel, and there are inside in your sharing the room, somebody has a cold, and then you have the air condition. Somebody doesn't want the heat. Somebody doesn't want the air conditioning in the room. It's really one of the part of the challenges of Hajj is how do we make that adjustments? How do we consider the condition of the other person? So it's really how the groups, when they come together, it demands a lot of patience, perseverance, and that is ultimately the reward is so high. So man hajja falam yarfuth walam yafsuk raja'a ka yawmin waladatu ummu. This will come with all of the challenges, and if a person is going to be persevering, is going to be considering other people, he will return the day like his mother had given birth to him, and hence. Are we going to prefer other people's condition over ourselves without having an impact on our own condition?
And that really sums up the whole sort of feeling and spirit of Hajj. And in fact, we just want to take one more call before we go to our next break. And it's Fahad from East London. A very good afternoon to you. What would you like to ask?
Assalamu alaikum, it's Farhan from East London. Just wanted to ask a question to Dr. Imran. I suffer from claustrophobia, and with regards to going on Hajj, if you had any sort of ideas on how to combat this.
That's a really good question, because for lots of people, even if they're not claustrophobic, just the whole concept of being in a very large group of people, that's quite something to deal with, isn't it?
There is a if somebody suffers from such kind of disorder, then I would advise to speak to the doctor. There are a lot of treatments actually, short-term and long-term for that. Short-term treatment is, for example, people who got a claustrophobia of certain places, for example, fear of flying. So we do have some medication which we give patient for short-term to relax, and that helps a lot. But if it's a long-term issue, then you can speak to the doctor. They can refer you, or sometimes you can get a self-referral for counselling. The talking therapies, the groups discussions and treatment for these kind of problems as well. But again, the point is, you have to plan early for that and discuss with the professional what things triggers it, and lots of other factors, so that they can treat it professionally and advise you.
And one of the things I'd like to ask you, Sheikh, is the whole way of, as a participant of the Hajj, with those, I mean, we're talking millions of people. How do you deal with just the sheer volume of people being amongst all of those crowds?
Well, that's the nature of Hajj. And from the beginning, you have to expect, that. Okay, Hajj the journey itself, from the beginning until the end, is about being patient. This is, how to endure all of this, differences of attitudes and habits and of those people who are going to be around you. So it is an experience.
And it's good advice. Thank you very much. Well, it's time for Azan now, so we will be taking a break and we shall return as we summarise the viewpoint of our guests, inshallah. Welcome back to the Health Show Hajj Special, where we've been joined by Sheikh Suleiman Ghani, Sheikh Abu Hanifa, as well as General Practitioner Dr. Imran Gohar. Now, in this special health show, we've been talking about all sorts of issues to do with your health, and we've been taking your calls as well. And we might see if we can squeeze in one or two more calls before the end of the show. But before we do that, there's a couple of issues that came up when we were just talking there in the break. One of them is, again, following up from the gentleman who called in about claustrophobia and this thing that you're with so many different people, there's millions of people from all over the world, and there's a whole level of tolerance that you need, don't you? You're having to wait a lot of the time, you're having to queue up, you're having to make sure that your interactions with other people are consistent with why you're at the Hajj in the first place.
Yes, indeed. And this is what Hajj teaches. It teaches tolerance. It teaches us that whole of mankind, it doesn't matter about your race. Islam strongly emphasizes on no racism. Everybody is equal. It is a great reminder of how our condition will be on the day of Judgment Day. All pieces have cast people. The men have cast aside their outside garments. They have donned the two pieces of their ihram clothing. Now that they are consecrated, the utterance is the same, the talbiyah, labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. And most importantly, they remind themselves that we are all equal. Almighty on the day of Judgment Day is not going to look at our outside appearance. There is no royalty, there is only loyalty in Islam. And it's not going to look at the wealth that we have. It is only the condition of the heart. So Islam teaches really that this Hajj, wonderful, unique experience, learning how to be patient, tolerant, and recognizing that we are so many different colors in the world. The languages are different, but what brings us together is our belief and firm belief in the oneness of the Creator.
And let's now look at the health aspects, because being calm and being peaceful is going to actually be much better for your health as well than getting agitated or frustrated because you're having to wait or you can't find your way somewhere or something. But what I'd like to do is really talk through some of your final top tips, if you like, of things that you would like people to consider when it comes to their health on the Hajj. So maybe start off with you. Sheikh Abdul Hanifa, what would you say are your top recommendations?
Hygiene. Hygiene is very important. Because of the heat at this time of the year, though you are in ihram, it doesn't prevent you from having a shower again and again and again to cool yourself. Make sure that the food that you eat, it is clean and it is from a right source. Do not wait for the symptoms actually to get worse before you seek advice. With every group, there is a medical assistant, there is doctors, there is professionals. Do not let these symptoms get worse before you start seeking advice for that.
Brilliant. Really good advice. Thank you. And Dr. Imran, what would you say?
I think the key is in preparation, physical and mental preparation. Any questions in your mind, write it down, get them answers before you start the journey. Also, one very key thing which can act as a preventative for all the others is be considerate to others as well. For example, getting a cold, cough and flu is very common when such a huge gatherings like Hajj. So be considerate to others. Make sure if you're having a cough, cold, you wear a mask, dispose your tissues properly, and look after your hydration and hygiene, so that even if you get some problems, you limit it and don't spread it.
Excellent.
Yes,
what would you say?
It reminds me of the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he advised the companion, La taghdab, do not become angry. Now, when people are overcrowded, they do not receive what they had expected to receive. They find whatever it is related to the Hajj, it does have an impact on their health and also on their Hajj itself. So patience, tolerance. وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ taqwa. The Prophet in the Quran Almighty mentions that you take your provisions, and the best of provisions is taqwa, piety, and the fear of your Creator.
Gentlemen, you've given us such amazing advice and tips and some really valuable information when it comes to people's health on their Hajj. I'd like to finish off, if I may, to ask each of you about your experience and what you would recommend, whether it's from a health point of view or just a spiritual point of view, how to make the most of their Hajj. Maybe starting off with you, Sheikh Sulaiman Ghani.
It's just understanding, reflecting, and know that you are not in an ordinary location. And so crucial, I feel, for every Hajj, every pilgrim, he should read about the life of Prophet Ibrahim, tracing the footsteps of Ibrahim Khalilullah at every location, reflect of the unflinching love displayed by the mother for her child Ismail. So it's more about doing those actions and at the same time understanding and knowing the significance of those places that they are visiting.
Really good advice. How about you, Doctor?
From a religious point of view, of course, I think reading about all the parts of Hajj and also from health point of view, making sure any questions in your mind, write them down, get them answered, prepare yourself if you can physically, do a bit of walking beforehand, hydrate yourself properly, eat healthy food. Don't eat too much. Sometimes people go on packages and they eat a lot of food and that can cause more problems. So balance and try to achieve the best throughout this whole Hajj because it's as I said, I mean it's a once in a lifetime journey and if you do that, it's really satisfying as well.
Excellent.
Hajj is about changing point. You have to make sure that you, after Hajj, completely a different person. So it's not a vocation. It's not it's not a holiday for you to go and spend time and come back and continue living the way how you were living before before Hajj. It is something very important for a person to realize that if I were to take this journey, I have to make sure that I am able actually to change and be a different person and be the way how I would want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see me.
In fact, we just had an email came through where somebody has actually said their top advice for people would be just to absorb every moment, don't rush, just appreciate every moment that you're there.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much indeed. That's fantastic. So there you have it. That's all we have time for. Some important and really helpful advice on how to maintain your health for Hajj. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Sheikh Sulaiman Ghani, Sheikh Abu Hanifa and Dr. Imran Gohar. Thank you very much indeed. If you would like any further information and didn't get a chance to get through to us, then please do email us at healthshow@islamchannel.tv. So we can answer any of your questions that you may have. Now, if you are going, we wish you good luck for all of you performing your Hajj and hope the tips provided in today's show were helpful and useful. And inshallah, all your prayers will be accepted. Goodbye and assalamu alaikum.